Hello again. One of the ways to get better at chess is to do puzzles. So that's what we're going to do today. On chess.com, if you've got a free account, you get to do so many free puzzles every day. I highly recommend doing those. If you want to do more, then you'll need to subscribe to a paid account, a premium membership, which is fine. I'm happy with just the free ones because it means I don't spend hours and hours doing puzzles and not do anything else in my life, because they can be quite addictive. So on chess.com, I'm on the puzzles menu, which you access from the left hand side here. There's several different options. The top one is rated puzzles. You get so many of those, half a dozen or so of those to do a day. And if you get them right, your rating goes up. If you get them wrong, your rating goes down. There's a puzzle rush, which that's what we're going to do today. Puzzle battle, you can do puzzles against another player. I don't do that one. There's a daily puzzle. I've done today's already, and if you can see, it says good job, which is very encouraging. And you can see I've been quite good at doing them every day. You can go back a couple of weeks if you miss any. This was today's puzzle. This was particularly tricky. Let me refresh it. They get harder as the week goes on. So I think the first one on a Monday starts off relatively easy or easier, and then as each day they get harder and harder. This one was particularly tricky. I did not get this right the first time. It took me a few attempts to do it, because the first move particularly is not what you would necessarily think of straight away. I tried things like taking the queen, taking the rook, moving the knight here to attack the queen, moves that seem to make sense to me. And if you get stuck, you can actually click on the hint button and it will highlight the piece that you need to move. So if I do that now, it'll highlight the piece that needs to move, which narrows down your options, obviously. And if you click it again, it'll actually show you the move that you need to make. I don't mind doing that here because obviously I've already done it today. But now that I've done it, that's the first move. The opponent has moved here. I know from doing this before that the move was to take this here. Now I lose my queen. Don't take back immediately, because then I just lose the rook as well. If I take the rook first, it puts the opponent into check, which means they can't move their queen to safety. They have to take. I take the queen, and then at the end of it all, I'll just close that window. At the end of it all, I'm left with a knight, and an extra pawn. And my opponent's just got their king and the 4 pawns, so that's why that was the solution to that puzzle. Anyway, I'm not going to spend too long on that. You can do those yourself. And then finally, there's custom puzzles. What I do, there's a drop down here where you can do a few extra puzzles if you want to. What I like to do is select puzzles I've failed. I put the rating from 0 up to a silly high number, all themes, and then that allows you to try some of the puzzles that you failed previously. That's how I do it. But what we're going to do today is the puzzle rush. This is the fun one. I particularly like this. It's quite challenging. There's 3-minute, 5-minute and survival options. 3-minute and 5-minute are timed, so you've got to do those quickly. I like to do the survival because there's no time constraints, and as I use this as a tool for improving my ability to spot things when I'm playing chess normally, and to hone tactics and so on, having time constraints is less helpful in my opinion. So the way this works is you get 3 lives. You have to try and get the puzzle correct on your first attempt. If you do, then you move on to the next one. and if you fail you lose a life, and once you've lost 3 lives that's the end of the game. My high score at the moment, as you can see, is 45, which doesn't sound a lot, but it's actually quite tricky, because as you'll see, the puzzle starts really easy with the first one and they get progressively more difficult each time you get one correct, and they can very quickly become quite tricky. So I don't think there's anything else I need to say about that. Let's start. So my goal obviously is to attempt to beat my high score of 45, and the way to do puzzles, which is also a technique you can employ in games, is to follow a methodical process before you make each move. And that process is, first of all, to make sure that you're not in check. So I'm playing as white here. If you look at the top right, it says white to moves, so that I know I'm playing white. And the board is from the perspective of the player whose move it is. If you look at the letters, they're alphabetical from left to right, so that's from white's perspective. If I was playing black, these letters would be reversed, so I know that I'm playing from black's perspective. So, am I in check? No, I'm not in check. Next thing to do, in reality, you don't go through this process strictly, because you see things in the position, and so you take shortcuts, if that makes sense. But just to explain the process in full, am I in check? No, I'm not. Can I put my opponent into check? That is the next thing to look at. So remember, the objective of chess is to checkmate the opponent's king, and so that's always a good thing to look at first, after you've made sure you're not in check, of course, because if you're in check you have to do something about that. Oh, I've made a mistake already, look. Well, that was foolish. So anyway, it does show you what happens when you lose a life. You get a red X here, and then the number underneath tells you the difficulty of that puzzle. In this case it was 160. So that wasn't a very good start, was it? I've already lost 1 life. That's going to make it a bit more difficult. But we'll carry on as I've started recording the video. So this is a much more complicated position. I'm playing as black. It's me to move. Here's my king. Am I in check? No, I'm not. Can I put my opponent into check? So the thing to do here is to look at all the possible checks, no matter how ridiculous they appear to be. So for instance, that's a check there. That's a check there. Are there any others? Can't check with a bishop, or the knight, this knight, or this bishop. So those, as far as I can see, those are the only 2 checks. Well, clearly this check with g8 to g1 doesn't make sense, because the king can just take. But it might be the right move. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a piece. So let's explore this one, which seems to make more sense. Check here. The king can't go that way, can't escape. They can't come here because of my other rook. Obviously they can't go there. The rook cannot be taken, so therefore that is checkmate straight away. There we go. On to the next one. And you can see that one was a little bit harder than the last one. So, am I in check? No. Can I put my opponent into check? I'm white this time. That's a check. That's a check. Are there any others? No, there are not. Again, this is very similar situation to the last one. This one doesn't make sense because the king can just take. However, this one would be... It's not quite checkmate because they can block with their rook, as you'll see now. There we are. But then I can simply just take the rook. And that's that one done. Okay. Here's my king. I'm playing as white. I'm not in check. Can I put my opponent into check? Let's see. That would be check. Are there any other checks? King's on a white square, so white bishop, white square bishop, no checks there. So that's the only check as far as I can tell. What happens after I put my king into check? They can't block. The queen can't be taken. So the king would have to move here. Now, once the king moves there, I can see that this bishop move would be check. That would force the king to move to this square or this square. No, correction. They can't move to these squares because my queen will be here. So let's look at that again. Check, king moves here. That would be checkmate. No, not quite. They can block with the knight. But then I can take the knight with the queen and then it would be checkmate. So let's do that. Okay, now the puzzles sometimes do that. They don't necessarily go through every sequence of moves. Sometimes you just stop after one or two moves. But that's fine. The point is, I'd had to work out what was going to happen in order to make sure that I was making the correct move. Okay, on to the next one. I'm in check, no. Where's my opponent's king? That's very weird, it's all the way down here. Can I put my opponent into check? Yes, I can. I can put the rook here. That would be checkmate. They can't take the bishop, they can't escape. So that's the move. There we go. Okay, I'm black again. My king's here, I'm not in check. Opponent's king is here. Is there a check? Yes, there is. Check here. Check here. Those are the two options. This one doesn't make any sense because they could take back either with the king or the rook. However, this one forces the king here, and then I can bring this one here and the king is trapped, and that would be checkmate. It may not even require me to make the second move. Let's see. No. Okay. Doing well. We're on to 5. Let's see. I'm not in check. Can I put my opponent into check? Yes, I can. Queen here would be check. I can't see any other checks. The queen is protected by the rook, and there's no escape for the king, and the queen can't be taken. Checkmate. Am I in check? No. Can I put my opponent into check? Yes. This is a check here. This is a check here. This is also a check. This is a check. This is a check. So there's a few options here. Are there any others? Can't see any more. Okay, so there's a few options to think about here. First of all, let's eliminate some of the obviously bad ones. This one is obviously not good because the knight can simply just take the queen. So that's not great. So let's highlight the ones that I've got left, not that one. Okay. This one here doesn't seem like a good idea because they can simply take with either the king or the rook. So let's eliminate that one. Move the arrows so I'm left with these two. This one here, the king can escape. Oops. Try that again. This one here, the king can escape this way, or to either of these squares. So that's less of a forcing move. This one here, the king's can escape to this square. Then I could check with the bishop, but they could just block with the rook. Obviously they wouldn't block with the queen. Okay, now, I'm noticing though that if the king is on this square, putting one of these rooks here pins the queen to the king, which means we'll win the queen. We might lose the rook, but we'll win the queen, so that might be it. Let's have a look at this one again. The king can go there. What happens if the king goes there? I can then check with the queen. And the king can either run away this way, or they can block with their queen, which would just be a queen exchange if I took it. So that doesn't seem to be an advantage to me. If I checked here and they move, well, if I checked here and they move to this square, then that doesn't seem like a very sensible move for my opponent. Because then I could check with the queen. The king would have to come here. So there's no point looking at that one. So let's look if they came here. That's assuming I'd done this to begin with. I don't have another check, which would give my opponent the opportunity to make a move. So looking at all of that, it seems to me that it has to be this one. And then the king. Well, what happens if the king moves here? So if I come there and the king moves here, what then? I can't now check this way. I'm surprised I'm struggling with this, considering it's a relatively low rated puzzle. You mean I could move the queen back here to give another check? I feel like I'm missing something here. I think it has to be this, doesn't it? Let's do it. No. Now you can see why it's so hard to get to 45. Okay. I am white. I'm not in check. Opponent's king. I've got a check here. I've got a check here. I've got a check here. I've also got a check here. My opponent's pawns are coming down the board, so that's not a very good check. So we'll ignore that one. So that leaves this one. For the same reason, rook to c3 is not a good one. So it's one of these two. Oh, it's this one, isn't it? Because the king can't go to any of these squares or these squares. So that would be the only thing they can do is block with either one of these pieces, or with both, but I can simply take them. So let's check, take, take. There we go. Okay, I'm black this time. I'm not in check. Can I put my opponent into check? Well, I've got 3 possible moves for the queen. 4 actually. And in actual fact, this move is supported by the bishop, so that would be checkmate. See how easy that one was compared to the one we did a couple of boards ago. Okay, I'm not in check. First thing I'm noticing something here is that this bishop is covering the king's escape square from the back rank. Therefore, rook here would be checkmate. There we go. This is one that I see quite a lot when I'm doing the puzzles. I'm not in check. I've got this battery. It's called a battery when you've got 2 pieces lined up together, and I can check the king with my queen protected by the rook. But I can't go here because I just lose my queen immediately. And if I took back, they'd take back with the king, and therefore I've lost my queen and my rook, and all I've got for it is a rook. So that's not good. However, I can check here, and that forces the king into the corner, so there's nowhere else. There's no other way of getting out of check. And then I say, oh no, my queen, and then checkmate. Okay, I'm black, I'm not in check. So what checks do I have? Let's see, that's a check. That is also a check. That is a check. Pawns can move 2 on the first go. Both of those queen moves don't look great because I'd simply lose my queen, so let's eliminate that. So that just leaves this one. Let's see what happens. Pawn here, they can take back with this pawn. Then I can take again with this pawn. Then they can take with the king. Then I can bring my queen here with check. The king can run this way or this way. I just realised there's another check here that I didn't see before. Oh, this looks better, doesn't it? Check here. King has to come here. And then I think this would be checkmate. Yep, it is. So check here. Checkmate. Checkmate with the pawn. Nice. Okay, I'm not in check. Can I put my opponent into check? Check here, check here, check here, check here. I can't see any more. Okay. This one, I would lose the queen. This one, I'd also lose the queen, but I could then take back with the rook. However, the king can just move to here and get away. But if I did it the other way round, I mean, obviously this is not a good move. If I took with the rook and put my opponent into check, when they take back with the pawn, I'd recapture with the queen. That would be checkmate because this square is covered by the bishop and the queen is covering the others. So let's do that. So that was oh no, my rook. Okay, as I already said, this is a common pattern that we see. Check here, king moves in the corner. Oh no, my queen. There we go. Okay, I'm not in check again. Sometimes you are in check at the start of a puzzle. That's why you need to check. You need to ascertain that first. This is a check. Doesn't look like a good one. However, there is a nice check in the corner here from the queen. And the rook's covering these escape squares. Can't be blocked. Can't be taken. Checkmate. Okay, not in check again. This would be a check here. This would also be a check here. Let's see. My initial thoughts is that I sacrifice the rook, but let's see what happens. Well, they can't take back because this pawn is pinned to the king. Can't move it, so that's easy. Checkmate. Okay, am I in check? No. Where are my checks now this time? That's a check, that's a check. And in fact, with the bishop supporting, no, it's not mate because they can take with the queen. Yes, I can take back, but then I lose the bishop. So, something else here. That's not a move. Well, it's a move, but it's not a good move. I can simply take with one of these. What else have we got? Taking this pawn. They take back. Take my queen. I've just noticed this is a check as well. In fact, okay, I think I can see it. I think it's check here. The king cannot move because the queen is covering this square. The bishop is covering these squares and the queen is covering this one as well. Obviously, this bishop is covering this square. The king cannot move. So the only thing they can do is block because they can't take the bishop. So they block with the bishop. Then I take their bishop. They can't take the bishop back because if they do, that would be checkmate. So that would be a tactic called removing the defender. This queen is defending this square from checkmate. So by encouraging it to take my bishop, I'm removing the defense, if that makes sense. So that would not be a good move, and if they don't take it back, then I've gained a bishop, so that seems like it's good either way. Now let me just double check that there isn't something better. I don't see it. I'll take that. They have taken it, so I can just checkmate there. Okay, I'm not in check. What checks do I have? This is a, no, let's start with the queen. This is a check here. Are there any others? No, I can't see any others checks. Let's see what happens. Well, my pawn is preventing the king from escaping here. So the king would have to come to this square. So this is beginning to look like the king can run away. Except for, once the king moves, I can then take this pawn with my queen. So they can no longer run away this way. So they'd either have to go to here, or they'd have to go there actually, because this pawn's stopping them coming here. Then what? I'm not seeing the I mean, I can go back here with check. King has to come here again. Oh, actually no, they could go there this time. Wait a minute, what am I talking about? Let's check here. King comes here. I take this pawn. The king moves here, and then I simply put the queen here, protected by the pawn, and that would be checkmate. Yep, that's it. There we go. Okay, I'm not in check, but immediately I can see that that is check. However, bishop can take. So that's not good. So do I take the bishop first? If I take the bishop, they have to do something about the checkmate threat, which means they have to move either move their rook here, attacking my queen. But I don't think that works, because I can also put the queen here. I don't have to go to this square. I can put the queen on this square to give a checkmate. Blocking here doesn't work. However, they can put their queen here to prevent the checkmate. What could I do then? Okay. As I'm talking, I've realised I only looked at this. Of course, I can do this now. And then they'd have to block. Well, they can block with the bishop here or here. They can block with the queen here. But in either of those cases, I can simply take. So, check, take, take. There we go. Okay, I'm not in check. But my king and pawn here means that the king has no escape, no squares to go to here. That my queen is covering this square, so the king is actually trapped at the moment. So if I can just deliver a check, that would be checkmate. So I'm seeing this one. I'm not worrying about that one because that was foolish. So I'm seeing this one. These pawns are moving down the board, so they can't block, they can't take. Yeah, that's it, checkmate. Okay, I am white, not in check. What checks do I have? Let's look at the obvious ones first of all. Check here, check here, check here, check here, check here, and check here. And now that I've just seen that one, it looks to me like this is the move. King would be forced to come here. We can then jump the knight in. Have to make sure I put it onto the correct square. This square would be protected by the pawn. This square would be protected by the queen. So what happens then? Check. King moves here. Let's try knight here first. The advantage knight here is that the knight covers this square. The queen is covering this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And the pawn's in the way for that one, so that looks like that's checkmate. So I probably don't need to look any further. Yeah, so it's definitely that one, because if the knight was to come here, this square is not covered by either of my pieces, which means the king could run away this way. So, oh, and again it didn't, but you can, well, it probably wouldn't have made any difference what I was thinking about with the knight there, but for the purposes of learning and getting better at chess, it's worth understanding the position fully. Okay, I'm not in check. Do I have any checks? Queen to here, here, or here would be check. And then I'd lose my queen immediately. Okay. Bishop here is also a check. What happens then? They take my bishop. I could then check with the queen here. The king would have to move to one of these squares. The reason I'm exploring this is because I can see that I've got these pawns that can come in to attack. So if I checked with the bishop, actually the king wouldn't have to take, it could come this way. But then I've got check here. I've also got this pawn close to promoting. I'm jumping ahead a bit there. I should be focusing on the checks first. Okay, let's look at that again. Bishop here, king takes, queen check here, can't block. So if the king comes to this square, I can check there. And then the king can come here or here. So now I'm wondering whether I should be setting up for that. So whether I should be moving a pawn first before delivering the check. Let's see. Okay, so can my opponent checkmate me? If I don't make a forcing move, can they checkmate me? Well, the queen here or here would just lose their queen. They can't check me with the rook. So I'm not in, and as I'm talking, I've just seen something. So I'm not in danger of check. So the method that I was talking about at the beginning of this video was you start looking, if you're in check, then if you can check your opponent, and we've explored those in this video, in this on this position. In all the previous ones, I didn't need to look any further because it was checkmate very quickly and we didn't need to think about anything else. But it doesn't seem to me like there's an obvious quick and easy checkmate in this one. So the next thing you do is you look at, as I just did, you look at whether you can be put into check or checkmated, to make sure you don't need to defend against that. And then you look at attacks. That's the next thing. So after you've done checks, you look at not attacks, captures. And the first thing you do is look at what can my opponent capture of my pieces. And so this rook can capture this pawn, the queen can capture this pawn or the bishop, and that looks like that's about it. So if you're not going to be delivering a check, you don't need to get out of check. The next thing to consider is, do I need to defend any of my pieces from being captured? So that's the way I do it. I always think defensively first. I can see now what pieces are under threat. Now this one I don't need to worry about, this pawn here, because my queen's protecting it. My queen is also protecting this pawn. However, they can still take with the rook, because if I was to take back, they'd obviously take my queen. So that's a weak pawn. That's potentially going to get taken. My bishop is protected by the pawn, so I don't need to worry about that one. So if I was going to make a defensive move, it would have to be to defend this pawn somehow. Maybe. So that's... Now, I'm not just going to do that, because the next thing I need to do is, can I attack my opponent? So I keep that in mind, and I think, can I attack my opponent? Because sometimes attack is the best means of defense. Correction, can I take any of my opponent's pieces? And yes, I can. I can actually just take their queen. And my queen can't take anything at the moment. And so that seems like a pretty good move to me. So I think I just abandon the idea of checks and so on. And not only will taking the queen give me their queen, it also means that this pawn is automatically safe again. So that's the move. I know that was a really long-winded explanation of the thought process, but normally in a game you wouldn't necessarily think through all those thoughts in that way. You would just see, oh, I can take the queen. Hope that makes sense. Okay. Right, I'm black. My king is here. I'm not in check. My opponent's king is here. Now I know what the solution to this is, because I've seen this pattern many times. So it's another one where you don't immediately put the opponent into check, because I do have a check here and a check here. Now obviously this one is not great, because I just lose my rook. The problem with this move is the king can escape to here, and then what do I do? Because I can't come over here with the rook, because I just lose it. I can come back, but then the king can go back, and we just go back and forth, which is fine if I want to draw. A threefold repetition would be a draw. If that's what I'm trying to achieve, then that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. My thinking is, can I stop the king from escaping to this square? Because if I can stop the king from moving off the back rank to one of these squares, then this move with the rook would be checkmate. And yes, I can. I can slide my king over. Sliding my king over here means that their king is stuck in the corner. And even if they were to move to this square, they still can't come here because of my king. So that effectively traps the king on the back rank. Now, what I need to be careful of is moving my king here gives my opponent a move. Can they put me into check? Well, not the way their pieces are positioned. The only piece that potentially could is the rook, and there's no way I can do it. So what can they do? They can move their rook somewhere to try and prevent this, but they can't really, because they can move here and then block, but that won't work. You'll see what I mean. I'll move the king here. Well, which they've done that anyway. Blocking here doesn't work because I can just simply take it, and that's checkmate. Okay. I'm black. I'm not in check. Here's my opponent's king. Do I have a check? I can't. Well, that's check. That's check. That's the only checks that I can see. Now, that's not a terrible move. That's an exchange of pieces. They take the knight, they take back with the pawn. They end up with doubled pawns. It's an roughly equal exchange of material. So that's not a terrible move. What about bishop here? Well, they can block with this pawn, or they can move the king. This is looking like it's quite early on in the game. It looks like they haven't castled yet. Moving the king would prevent them from castling, so that's less likely. The most likely option for my opponent is to block. Have I got anything then? I can't see anything obvious. So let's look a bit deeper. Can my opponent put me into check? No, they can't. What about captures? Well, my rook can be captured here, which is not great. So, what else do we have? They can't capture anything else. Can I capture anything? I can't capture the bishop. Well, we've already looked at that. I can capture this piece. That doesn't help with my rook situation though. Okay, can I attack anything? So, my rook might be under threat, but if I threaten to take their queen, for instance, then they're not simply just going to take the rook. They'll need to do something about the queen threat. So can I threaten their queen? I don't think I can. I don't think I can. So checks, captures, and then attacks. So thinking about threatening their queen would be thinking about attacking an opponent's piece. That's the final stage. Look for attacks. So, what are my options? I can move the rook out of the way to safety, which feels a little bit passive. I can put the bishop here to protect the rook, but I feel like an exchange there is better for my opponent because it forces my king forward, which is definitely not great. In fact, once that exchange happens, their queen can come here, putting me into check. So I feel like that's not a good move. This would be an okay move because it lines the rook up with the king, but it does give them the opportunity to move. Although having said that, I have got then this pawn move and they can't take it. But I'm still coming back to this, so perhaps I need to explore this a bit deeper. Perhaps I need to think a bit more about this one. Oh wait, there is another attack. I can put my queen here, pinning the knight to the king, meaning so the knight can't move. No, they just take my rook then, so that doesn't work. Okay, I've worked it out. As you can see, as I said earlier, they get more and more difficult the further you go in. I'm at level 1331, so they're rated 1331 this puzzle. Okay, so this is it. Take the knight with check, so they have to do something about that because they're in check. They take back with the pawn. Then I check with the queen here, which I can't do at the moment because the bishop's in the way. They will block with the pawn, presumably, then I can take their bishop. So I get a bishop and a knight for a bishop. That's the solution. There we go. Now you can see more why it's difficult to get to 45. Right, I'm not in check. Do I have any sensible checks? This one and this one. So I'm leaning towards this one because it forces the king towards my king and pawns. In fact, if I come here and they come here, then I can come down and check them again here, forcing them to this square. And then queen here would be checkmate. So let's assume they're not going to go there and that they're going to go there. Well, then I can immediately... Oh, no, I can't because the queen will be there then. They come there. Then I check with the pawn. They come here. And then I check with the other pawn, which is be protected by my queen. And that'll be checkmate. So it's either this, 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 which will be checkmate, or it's this, 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 which will be checkmate. I think. Yep. Here we go. There we go. Okay. I'm not in check. Do I have any checks? This one. This is a check. Can't see any other checks. That doesn't seem right. They take back. I can check with the bishop then, but then they can just move the bishop back. So I can also check with the pawn, but they just take it. Now that does not seem right at all. Okay, captures. Well, can I be checkmated first of all? No, there's no, these checks don't work. There isn't any others for my opponent. No, there isn't. Captures. They can capture here or here. So my queen is under threat at the moment. So I can't leave that situation. Or can I? So my queen's under threat. That's a problem to deal with. They can't really capture anything else. What can I capture? Well, I can capture the knight. That immediately gets rid of the queen, the threat on the queen. They can take back with the rook, which would put me into check. Don't really like that. Yeah, I can block. And we'll have just exchanged knights, basically. So that doesn't give me an advantage, which is what I'm looking for. I can take the rook, but then I just lose my queen. And I don't have a follow-up. I can take the knight then, though. So I would gain a rook and a knight for my queen. Yeah. Oh, hang on a minute, though. Wait a minute. I don't even have to take the knight, do I? Because if I take the rook, they've got to take back with the pawn. I can then take this knight, which would be checkmate. So they can't take my queen back. So then I've got option. They can't take back here. They could take the knight though and put me into check. But then I can just bring the queen back and take it back, and I'm up a rook. I think that's it. Yep. Okay. Nice. Okay. I'm not in check. Right, so I've got two checks with the queen, here and here. I've got no other checks. Either one of those, the king's going to escape here. Then I can put the bishop here. Or actually, I've just realised I can bishop check here. I can do that now. But then the king moves here, and I can no longer check with the queen because I've taken away the protection of the bishop. Okay, so what I'm thinking is check here, the king moves here, and there's a reason why I'm going this square and not the corner. Check with the bishop. They can't block with anything except the queen, which would be foolish. So the king will move here. Then I can take this pawn. I don't know if that's going to work, because the king can just escape, or they can block with the rook, although I'd take the rook with the bishop, wouldn't I? But the king can escape there. Okay. Instead of checking here with the bishop, what about checking here with the queen? Now they can block with the rook now. That doesn't look right. Wait a second. What if I check here? They put the king here. What if I come back with the queen and check rather than using the bishop? The king would still go here. What am I talking about? I'll win the queen, won't I? If I check here, king here, and then I put the bishop here with check, when they move, I'll just take the queen. Yep, there we go. Okay. Despite losing 2 lives early on, I'm actually doing okay, I think. Not in check. What checks do I have? Check here, check here, check here, check here, check here, check here. There's some options here. Actually, look, I am in check. What am I talking about? I am in check. So what I'm noticing here is that, so there is a final step in the procedure: checks, captures and attacks. But there is one last one that I use, which is position. So once you've evaluated all those other things, it's good to look at positional things. And I've seen what the checks are. There's multiple choices. I'm in check, so I need to do something about that. Obviously I can block. I can move my king to one of these squares. That seems like an awful lot to try and evaluate. So I can't take the queen at the moment, and I can't take this pawn because it's protected. So that's the captures, the attacks. I mean, the thing about this move is, not only does it block the check, it also puts my opponent into check. So I suspect it would result in a queen exchange, because if they were to just move the king, then I'd take their queen. So this move forces a queen exchange, and we'd be in a position where my king is here, their king's there. There's no other pieces other than pawns on the board, and so there's no other captures and there's no other attacks immediately. So, but positionally, the pawns are all over on this side of the board and their king is over here, whereas my king is very close, which means that after the exchange has happened, I can simply run my king over here, take this pawn, and then push my pawn to the end to get a queen protected by my king. The only move that they could do to slow that down would be to push this pawn here, but then I simply take, and if they were to come here, am I quick enough? Well, not really, because I don't need to worry about that. Let's go back. My king would be here. The queens are gone. They would, let's think. My king would be here. If they did this, and I took, and they pushed their pawn forward, I can simply come here with the king, and even if they pushed again, I can take it. And I've still got time to run my pawn to the end of the board before their king can get over here. I think that makes sense. I hope so. Let's do it. Check, take. Oh, well, they didn't push this pawn, so I can simply come over here. And then here. And then here. And there you go. That's it. Okay, I'm not in check. This is check. This is check. Well, let's highlight the squares. These are check from the queen. This is also check from the queen. Okay, no other checks. Now, what happens if I well, I'm going to dismiss the queen checks initially because I'll simply lose the queen. However, check, if I take here with check, the king can't move, so they'd have to take the rook. Then I can slide this rook over, delivering another check, and the king is stuck. The rook can't be taken, so they'd have to block with their queen, which I then take, delivering checkmate, and the rook would be protected by the queen. And even though my queen's under threat, my opponent just doesn't have time to take it. They're too busy dealing with the checks. So check, check. Oh, well, stopped at that point. Okay, I'm not in check. That's a check. That's a check. Can't see any others. I mean, I could take the rook straight away, but I feel like the check's more valuable. Check here. King has to come here. What do I do? Bishop here then, which would be check from the rook, and the king can't move back. Yeah, I think and I have to go bishop here. Ah, no, because they can block with the knight, but then I can just take it. Yeah, so I have to, let's just do that first. I have to put the bishop here. I can't come here or take this because when they block, they can block with either the bishop or the knight, and they'll be mutually protecting each other. Which means I can't then take it with the rook. Whereas if I put the bishop here, they can't take the bishop because they're in check from the rook. Yeah, okay, they can block there, but I'll just take that. Okay, I'm not in check, but I will be. No, not there. There, actually. However, before I worry about that, have I got any checks? White to move. That's check. These squares are covered by my knight. This one's covered by the queen, so the king would have to move here. Yeah, that's about as far as it goes. Okay, this is also check. A safe check, that is. Again, the king has to move here. I could then take the pawn, which would be a fork. the king would have to come back. Oh, and then I can just put the queen here, protected by the knight, which would be checkmate. So it looks like check, king moves here, check, king moves back, checkmate. Now let's just make sure that I'm not missing anything in any of those moves. They can't block with anything or take the queen. No, this queen can't get to any of those squares. Yeah, so check, check. Okay. Right, I'm in check this time at the start. So I've got to do something about that. There's no point in looking at anything else. What can I do? I'm black. I can't block with anything. I can't take the rook. So I need to move the king. So I've just got to figure out the best place to move the king. Well, I can't go here because of the pawn. I obviously can't stay on this file. So I'm kind of feeling like one of these two squares means that they can't check me again. However, one of these two means that I'm attacking the pawn. So even if they did check me again, I can just take the pawn. I can take the pawn. The question is which one? I'm thinking this one because they don't have to check me again. They could take here, attacking my rook. And if my king was here, then I could simply take. So I'm leaning towards moving the king here. What else can they do? After I've moved the king, can't take any pieces. They can put the rook here, protecting this to protect the pawn. But then I can just take this one with either my pawn or the rook. The rook seems like the most sensible. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's it. Oh, okay, I didn't consider that one. But maybe I just take now. Which is the whole reason why I moved the king over here. Now, I know that they can check me, but then I can just take the other one. So, there we go. I'm white, not in check. I've run out of pieces, except I do have these two pawns. And the bishop cannot stop them both. So there's a rule, there's a principle in chess that if you can get two connected pawns, so these are connected because they're next to each other, onto the 6th rank, and the opponent's only got one piece left other than pawns, it's pretty much impossible for them to stop me getting a queen. I think, something like that anyway. So I'm pretty sure that's the move there. Now I've got two options here. Have I though? Let's just think about this. If I push this pawn again, they can put the bishop back here, and then I can't get a queen with it. And if I attempt to push this one, then they can simply take, and they're still covering the queening square. So I don't think that's right. So I think I have to give up this one to enable this one to queen. So I'm pretty sure it's this, and then get a queen. There we go. Okay, I'm not in check, although I'm about to be. However, opponent doesn't have time to do that because I can simply check there. The king would have moved in the corner and I'd have checkmated on the next move. Right, not in check. What checks do I have? This one, Technically this one. I've also got this one. Okay, let's ignore that move with the rook. Okay, so I like the fact the rook is stopping the king coming here. My pawns are stopping the king coming here. And the knight's stopping the king. So at the moment, the only place the king can move to is there. However, as soon as I move one of these pieces to put him into check, it opens up another escape square. So let's consider this move. The king can move here or here. Yeah, I'm not seeing the move, the follow-up move after that. It's not jumping out at me. I've just realised that's a check as well. Okay, what about this one? King can move there or there. Well, I quite like the fact that it's pushing the king back. On the other hand, I'm going to need to be using my pawns, I think, as well. Okay, let's look at this a bit deeper. There or there. I haven't got to check with the pawns. I haven't got to check with the rook. With the knight, I mean. I can move the rook back, but then we can just go back and forth. I mean, the advantage of moving the knight here is then I've got access to this square, which attacks the bishop and protects this pawn. Because I can see that my opponent can check me here. Let's have a look at this one. They can come here or here. Oh, now wait a minute. If I check here and they come here, then I can take this pawn, which would be checkmate. So they're not going to do that. So if I come here and they move here, I can then check here with the knight, because this pawn will be pinned by the rook. The knight here would also cover this square, so that would force the king onto the back, into the back corner. The knight is covering the escape square, and then this would be checkmate, I think. Yes, it would. So there we go. Excellent. Okay. I'm not in check. What checks have I got? Well, I can't see any direct checks. However, I do have a discovered check. So moving the knight out of the way somewhere discovers this check from the bishop. That's called a discovered check. I think that's the only check that I've got. And actually, if I put the knight here, it's a double check. It's a discovered double check. The king are being checked by both the bishop and the knight. And the great thing about that is they cannot take either piece. If they take one, they'd still be in check by the other. And they can't block either, although you can't block a check from a knight anyway. So that forces the king to move. That's the point. And the king would have to move into the corner. Then do I have a follow-up? I'm not seeing the follow-up move. Well, I could take this pawn. The reason I'm looking at that is because when they take with the king, I can check with the queen. Oh, that would be checkmate. Actually, because the bishop will be covering the escape square. Okay, so let's look at that. Check. King here. Take. Which is attacking the rook. They don't have to take back, of course. You could just move the rook. What do I have then after they move the rook? Well, I can come back and... Oh no, that wouldn't be check, would it? Okay, the other thing I could do is put the queen here first, because it's not under threat there, before delivering this check. Well, it'd be, you know, the double check. Then when the king moves, that's checkmate. Okay, what can my opponent do if I do that first? Well, they can't put me into check any. Obviously they can. Bishop. But I can just take, can't I? And they can take back. And then I can deliver the check. What else can they do? They can put the knight here attacking the queen. But I can simply take with this pawn here. They could bring the queen here, protected by the knight, attacking my queen. But that doesn't work either because I'll be delivering a double check. So, in actual fact, the only move that prevents me from doing this would be this check, I think. Unless they can block the check from the bishop, which would allow them to then take the knight. Can't see how they can do that. Okay, so I'm actually, because even if they attack the queen, I could still just do this. Now then the king can move forward. But I think I can still go check here. They take the knight. And I've got my bishop here, which skewers their queen as well. So this is quite a complicated one, but we are at 1929 was the last time, so we're around about the 2000 rating now. Bearing in mind that my actual rating in playing games is around about 1400 down here. I'd expect these to be quite tricky. I think I need to come here first, because I don't think they can stop me delivering that double check. Let's do it. Oh no, it's wrong. Oh look, 34, that's pretty good. I mean, still quite away from 45. Pretty good. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and hopefully that was instructional, and I will see you next time.